Way back, the Persian Empire didn't just run the world, it owned it. From the Aegean Sea all the way to the Indus River, 60 nations fell in line under one flag. But no empire lasts forever. They rise, they burn out, they crumble. The land we call Iran today has been conquered, renamed, and carved up more times than anyone can count. And yet, it never stopped being the center of something massive. Right now, all of that history funnels down to a single chokepoint, a stretch of water barely 21 miles wide. And get this, 20% of the world's oil supply squeezes through that gap every single day. This isn't just some dot on a map. This is the spot where human greed, military power, and raw geological force all collide at once. One bad day here doesn't just shake markets, it wrecks entire economies. They call it the jugular vein of the modern world. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz Island. 5 miles off the coast of Bandar Abbas sits Hormuz Island, and this place looks straight up fake. Like someone cranked the saturation on a photo and forgot to turn it back down. The island is a salt dome, a 600-million-year-old mass of compressed salt and volcanic rock that's been slowly pushing up through the ground for the last 50,000 years. And as it rose, it dragged iron oxide, hematite, gypsum, and volcanic minerals up with it, stacking more than 70 different mineral shades right on the surface. Deep red cliffs, black beaches made of crystallized hematite, purple canyon walls, golden dry riverbeds that stopped running before humans even showed up. About 3,000 people call this place home, mostly Sunni fishermen whose dialect mixes Portuguese, Arabic, Hindi, and Dutch all in one sentence. A living record of every empire that tried to plant its flag here. For these folks, the geology isn't a tourist attraction. It's daily life. Women grind the red ochre soil, called gelak, into a spice that goes straight into their food. The Portuguese fort built from that same red rock in 1507 is still standing on the north shore, slowly dissolving back into the land it came from. Like the island keeps taking back whatever outsiders tried to leave behind. There's no fresh water here. Every single drop gets shipped in by boat or pulled from a desalination plant. The same salt dome that made this island look incredible also wrecked every source of drinkable groundwater. The fishermen working these waters before sunrise know the deal. The Gulf their fathers fished is gone. Fish stocks are down. Water temps have shifted. The gelak spice trade, now under government restrictions. And every summer, nearly half the island's population leaves, not for vacation. For work, because the island can't pay its people anymore. What's left behind are the elderly, the kids, and a landscape that keeps doing its thing regardless, same as it has for 600 million years. "96 miles long, over 570 square miles, bigger than Bahrain and Singapore put together. Keshem is the largest island in Iran and the only UNESCO global geopark in the entire Middle East, and it earned that title not because of politics, but because the ground itself demanded it. Keshem sits right on the collision line between the Arabian and Eurasian tectonic plates, a 25-million-year crunch that folded rock over shifting salt layers and built something wild. You've got a salt cathedral underground, ancient canyon systems carved by long-dead rivers, and a mangrove forest thick enough to hide nesting flamingos. Then there's Namaktan Salt Cave, the longest salt cave on Earth, stretching more than 4 miles underground from a dome that goes 12 miles deep. The crystals inside, pink, crimson, cobalt, and they're older than the Cambrian period, older than most life that ever existed on land. 148,000 people live here, and for them this isn't a geopark, it's just home. The island's boat builders still build deep-water wooden ships assembled completely from memory. No blueprints, no instructions. Just knowledge passed from one generation to the next by people who once sailed from this coast all the way to India, East Africa, and China. The local dialect carries words from Portuguese, Arabic, Hindi, and Swahili, one language built from centuries of contact. Women wear the burqa, a beaked mask, not as a fashion statement, but as straight-up sun protection for people who spend their lives working on open water under brutal heat. Keshem got this way through two forces working at the same time, geology and empire. Its position between two ocean systems made it a target for every power that understood what the strait controlled. Today, rising water temps are bleaching its reefs, tourism is straining its protected status, and the next generation of boat builders is heading to the mainland for steadier pay. Keshem is proof that being ancient and being massive doesn't protect you from anything. Three miles from the main tanker shipping lane. That's how close Larak sits to one of the most watched strips of water on the planet. It's the smallest of the three strategic islands at the strait, smaller than Hormuz, quieter than Keshem. But from its elevated shoreline, you can watch 21 million barrels of oil pass by every single day. The island rises sharp from the Gulf floor and drops into warm, shallow water. And in late summer through fall, something wild happens here: bioluminescence. Phytoplankton pack near the surface and start glowing cold blue-green, tracing every single wave in pure light. The coastline literally lights itself up. No electricity, no moon needed. For the fishermen who have worked this island forever, that glow isn't a light show, it's a GPS signal. The same warm, still water that triggers the bloom also packs in the schooling fish. The light tells you exactly where to drop your line. Houses here are built from compacted earth and coral with walls thick enough to handle winters near 10 Celsius and summers past 43. That's not tradition for tradition's sake. That's engineering that actually works in this climate. Because Larak sits so close to sensitive military infrastructure, development and tourism have always been restricted. That restriction, weirdly, is what saved it. Intact reefs, undiluted bioluminescence, no light pollution. Larak is proof that sometimes the best thing that can happen to a place is that the world decides to leave it alone. Just over a mile off Keshem's south coast, 13 square miles, no paved roads, no hotels, fewer than 650 people. Hangem has barely changed across centuries of Persian, Portuguese, and British territorial fights, and the reason it looks the way it does is written right in the sand. The beach here doesn't look real. Phyllosilicate minerals embedded in the sand catch sunlight and throw it back as metallic silver, white at one angle, mirror bright at another. At night, the same bioluminescent phytoplankton bloom from Larak shows up here too, cold blue light running along the surface of the water with every wave. The place generates its own light show, every night, for free. The women here are some of the only female fisherfolk in the entire Persian Gulf. Out before sunrise in small wooden boats, targeting barracuda and emperor fish. On shore, artisans flip shell waste into jewelry sold at one of the last fully traditional island markets in the Gulf. The czar ceremony, collective drumming, rhythmic trance, communal reset, is still practiced here as a legit coping mechanism for the isolation and environmental stress that come with island life. It's been working longer than any therapist's office has been open. Right now, Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins that show up in the bay between Hangem and Keshem every autumn are getting pushed out by tourist boat traffic during peak season. The Silver Beach is under visitor restriction because tourists were pocketing the sand. Hangem is the kind of place that doesn't show up on most maps, but it's holding ecological knowledge that nothing else can replace. "12 miles off Iran's southern coast, 35 square miles of coral island barely above sea level, Kish sits inside a natural heat trap. The Persian Gulf is shallow, enclosed, and holds heat like an oven. Summers hit above 43 Celsius. The humidity makes it feel sealed shut. On the surface, it looks like a luxury postcard. Turquoise water, bone-white sand. Underneath, it's running on 2,500-year-old infrastructure. 15 meters below the island is a Qanat system, an ancient underground water channel cut by hand 25 centuries ago to filter rainwater through layers of fossilized coral and clay. No pumps, no electricity, just gravity and mineral filtration pulling clean drinking water to a population with zero other freshwater options. The tunnel ceiling is made of fossil coral dated between 53 and 570 million years old, a stone record of the entire seafloor history beneath this island. The people who built this figured out what modern desalination plants burn enormous amounts of energy to replicate. Above ground, the ruins of Harir, a trading city from the 8th century, still stand on the island's north edge. And just off the southwest reef, the hull of a cargo ship run aground in 1966 sits rusting in shallow turquoise water. At sunset, it looks like the skeleton of an old empire, or the beginning of a reef. Today, Kish gets 12 million visitors a year as a free trade zone, and every single one of them is putting pressure on a water system that was never built for this. Kish is a live example of what happens when ancient survival infrastructure collides head-on with mass consumption. 112 miles west of Bandar Abbas, 17 square miles of low, flat land sitting on top of some of the most productive oil reservoirs in the Gulf. Lavin is what happens when nature and industry occupy the same address and neither one blinks. Chinkara gazelles run along beaches of pale coral sand right next to holding tanks, pipelines, and refinery infrastructure. There's no metaphor here. That's just what the island looks like. Before the oil economy moved in, Lavin was a pearl diving hub. Its divers had a rep across the entire Gulf trade network, known for their lung capacity and their ability to read the underwater pearl beds by feel alone. No instruments, just knowledge. That whole economy got wiped out in the 1930s when Japan started mass-producing cultured pearls and made natural pearl diving economically pointless across the entire Gulf overnight. What replaced it on Lavin wasn't a pivot, it was a straight swap. The same deep water access and strategic position that made the island valuable to pearl traders got handed directly to the oil industry. Today, older residents carry detailed oral knowledge of pearl beds that have no market and no institutional home. The geography that made Lavin worth something to everyone else was never the geography that made it worth living in. The Persian Gulf coast of Iran keeps getting reduced to one image, a tense strait, a geopolitical flashpoint, a region defined by what passes through it. But what actually lives here is something older and way more layered. Civilizations built on salt domes and fossil coral, ships assembled from pure memory, underground rivers filtered through stone, industrial infrastructure sitting right next to ecosystems that have no business surviving it, and yet do. Communities who figured out long before the rest of the world showed up that living in an extreme environment isn't an emergency. It's a skill. These places should not work by any modern standard of comfort or stability. And yet they hold, not because they got lucky, but because generations of people had no choice but to understand exactly where they lived and build their entire lives around that understanding. Now, as climate pressure tears apart the assumptions that modern infrastructure was built on, as lakes turn to salt, as coral bleaches, as thermal systems shift faster than anything can adapt, these islands and this disappearing lake stop looking like outliers. They start looking like previews. What the Persian Gulf already knows about living at the edge of what's survivable. What Lake Urmia already knows about losing what can't come back. What Hormuz already knows about turning minerals into culture and culture into survival. None of that is local knowledge anymore. This is not the end of the story. This is where the story was always headed. Iran Unfiltered. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really means a lot, and I will see you next time.